welcome back to another episode of God Built This Podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 195. Hello. Okay, service announcements. I think we should ban children from church. Hello? Yeah. I think children, let's say, under the age of 10. I think 10 is a good age to be in a church service with adults. Other than that, under the age of 10, children should not be in the sanctuary with adults. They should have a separate service. However that looks like is up to that Sunday school teacher, but I think I had enough of children in the church. That is not how you bring up a child anymore. It's like, no, I deadass do feel that way. You know, I've been back to church lately. I found a Haitian church to go to here in Houston, and it's been a great experience. And the size of the church is pretty much of a community style church. And what I mean by that is it's pretty like tight knit. It's family oriented, and there is just like a lot of people, it seems like a lot of people are related, or it's just like a extensive history that they have with each other, which is pretty awesome to be an observant of and to just be in attendance. So that's great. And of course, there are children, right? Like, of course there will be children. Of course children are going to be a part of it. And I think because I'm not, I'm still new to that church, I don't feel necessarily comfortable to tell a child to sit the fuck down. Sit down, right? I don't feel comfortable yet. Eventually I may feel comfortable, but I don't know. This past service, Sunday service, I was sitting in my seat, and this little girl, probably 4 or 5, just moving around next to the seat and just like kicking. She wasn't kicking me. And actually at that time I was standing up, being, actively engaged in the praise and worship. And she's seated, and like her leg is like a little like close to my seat. Like there's no boundary, there's no space. And this elderly woman actually, who brought her to that seat, because I was originally seated there without them there. And probably like 10 minutes later, she came and sat next to me with this little terror of a child. Hello? Can you raise your child better? What's going on? So she's fucking, this elderly lady, she's probably the grandma. So she's taking her granddaughter, and this granddaughter is just like moving and grooving. Ugh. And so naturally me, like, I'm always cognizant of my surroundings. And even though I was engaged in the praise and worship, I'm looking back, I'm turning around, and I'm noticing this little girl, her leg almost to my seat, right? Her shoes, obviously she walking on these shoes. I don't want her shoe on my seat. Like, the fuck? And then I don't know, she's gonna go in my bag. I didn't have a feeling that she was gonna go in my bag, but it's just, can you sit still? Can you sit down? So I don't know if there was an expression on my face. I try to present a poker face as much as possible. Like, I'm very calm, collected in my exterior, right? While inside, I'm like screaming. But I don't know if there was an expression on my face, because one of the guys from the band, like the musicians who's playing the drums, the guitar, one of the guys there, I had a feeling he was coming towards me. For some reason, I just had a feeling. I'm like, okay, he's coming towards me. I just have a feeling. And I was right. It confirmed, okay? So he walked towards me. This is all happening during service. And he purposely walks towards me to chastise that little girl. So maybe that's his daughter, or maybe it's just, a little girl that he knows because it's, they're a part of this community style church. So he's telling her, sit still, you need to stop moving around. It's not, telling her exactly what I've been wanting to say to her. And thankfully she listened to him. But I want to say probably a good 20 minutes later, she's still kind of seated crooked, and it's just weird. So eventually she gets up and goes to the row ahead of me to sit with another group of people. And okay, whatever, right? She didn't bother me. She wasn't necessarily on my seat. She just was too close to me. That's what I felt like. Tell your grandkid to sit still, right? And I'm noticing that, though that guy came and saved the day on my behalf, I feel like he was noticing something that I was clearly irritated. But he helped with that situation. But I'm just noticing, this whole, it takes a village to raise a child, or to, rear a child. And though I still agree with that, I just feel like, at what point, when am I a village member to finally be able to tell that kid, sit the fuck down, right? I was giving her the look sometimes, okay, sit still. So whenever she caught eye contact with me, I wasn't like, hi, I was in my stern face, and she respected that and moved accordingly. So that was fine. But anyway, and it is just a multiple occasion thing, not with me directly, but I remember in a previous service, I was witnessing a row of little kids just doing whatever they wanted, okay? Sitting on the floor, sitting crooked on the chair, playing a game with each other. And I noticed one boy, he was drawing, which is fine, right? Demonstrate your creative prowess, right? That's beautiful. But your little friends are doing too much right now. So, and that took a while for someone to finally go to them and tell them to sit still, pay attention, or whatever it is. But, maybe I'm expecting too much from little kids. What is a 7-year-old really gathering right now in a church service? And not to say there aren't 7-year-olds who can be really engaged in church services, because I've seen that, right? I've seen that whether directly or on TV. It can happen, but I just think for the most part, you have a lot of kids who do have a lot of energy, and I don't know, there has to be something to do. And I'm not trying to say they shouldn't be brought up in the Lord, right? Let them just stay home. No, I do think that children should go to church. I just think there should be a separate service for them. Okay? I just feel like they should go somewhere else. Especially if you have a child who's ADHD, okay? Anybody got time to tell this kid to sit down again and give him another stern look again? All right, speaking of the house of the Lord, let's talk about House of Hammer. The House of Hammer. My God, today, if you haven't done anything else with your life, I'm being dramatic, but please take a moment to go watch a documentary. It's on the streaming service Discovery Plus. But, if you got Fire Stick, other little whoopsie-daisy connects, you could figure it out and watch it. But it's a 3-part docu-series. Again, it's called House of Hammer. Now, I remember hearing about this guy named Army Hammer. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all talking about Arm& Hammer? You know, the deodorant that niggas will be wearing? Like, y'all talking about that? Like, what is this big story about Arm& Hammer? So I was completely ignorant to it. And I'm so glad I decided to get educated. Okay. I'm so glad I decided to just finally check it out, because I think I was watching something else on YouTube, and someone mentioned this docu-series. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I might as well. You know, I love a good docu-series. Y'all already know. So I went and watched it. And when you say generational curses, they're so real. Like, I can't understand people who don't recognize that. Yeah, I'm noticing some issues in my family, right? And these issues are repetitive, and these issues are stemming from generations back and all these things. So, wow. So the docuseries starts off about Arm& Hammer. That's his name, Arm& Hammer. He's named after his grandfather or great-grandfather. Like, the timeline and the chronological history and the family genes is just interesting and hard to follow. But I want to say his great-grandfather. Yeah, I think his great-grandfather. His great-grandfather, his name is Armand Hammer. And he is an oil tycoon. Let me just give you guys some brief history. He's an oil tycoon, and he became this oil tycoon by buying out a failed oil company, petroleum company, and he bought it out by actually bribing the original owner. So let me find, there we go. So Arm & Hammer was an American business manager and owner, most closely associated with Occidental Petroleum. Okay, so that is the company that he took over, that he usurped after bribing the original company CEO/founder. So a company he ran from 1957 until his death. He was called Lenin's chosen capitalist by the press. He was also known for his art collection and his close ties to the Soviet Union. So he's actually Russian, and he did everything he could to not claim that ancestry, to not claim that historic just note of his makeup, because of the, I guess, negative connotation. So anyway, he became this oil tycoon. Once he took over Occidental Petroleum, he became a billionaire. Yeah, I think a billionaire. Let me look up a couple of things. So he was born in New York City to Jewish parents who emigrated from what was then the Russian Empire. Yada yada yada. Okay, anyway, so basically he's this oil tycoon. Money flowing in every pore. Okay, money flowing. He didn't acquire his money obviously the ethical way, or, you know, the high moral ground. He was a patriarch of his family, so whatever he wanted his children to do, they did. So anyway, so his son worked within the company, and they just continued their practices. There was some espionage that took place. So whenever the father, the great-grandfather, Arm & Hammer, was having meetings or dealings with anybody, or even just phone call conversations, he made sure they were recorded at all times. So he just always has a record, and he'll use it to his advantage whenever necessary. his grandson, not Armie Hammer yet, right? Because not Armie Hammer yet, because Armie Hammer is his great grandson, right? So his grandson, he wanted him to marry this woman. And this woman she comes from money as well. And she also presents this very religious and good girl aesthetic. So his influence allowed for them to get married. And then comes Armie Hammer. So Armie Hammer he comes from this oil tycoon family. Think of Succession. I haven't watched that show, but apparently there are some strong similarities of just family, rich money, just come from a rich background, old money, and being abusive, drug addicted, and, multiple marriages, all these things. So Armie Hammer comes into the limelight. He's an actor. Armie Hammer is an actor. And he's known for starring in The Social Network, which is about the start of Facebook and how that came about. So that's how he claimed to fame. So Armie Hammer, I want to say last year, it was very recent apparently. Just last year, he got under fire for this just onslaught of text messages that he sent to women, or to one woman, and then that one became two, and that two became three. But anyway, in these text messages, he is very, think of 50 Shades of Grey, right? Remember when 50 Shades of Grey was out and it got so much praise, right? It's about this timid woman who became sexually explicit and adventurous because she got with this rich man who introduced her to BDSM and all this freaky shit, right? So think of that times 10, because it's not just a book, right? It's actually real life experiences of this man wanting to tie up the woman that he's sexually attracted to and romantically linked with. So he was sent DMs on Instagram, and this took place during the pandemic, actually, which, I gotta give him some grace, right? Let me just give him some grace real quick, because we all know how that time period was, okay? A lot of us were online doing what we probably shouldn't have been doing. At least, look, let me just be personal real quick, because at the time I was on dating apps, okay, during the 2020 pandemic, right at the height of it. And I feel like everyone was longing for connection even more because of the lockdown. So I was on these apps just creating conversation and being matched left and right with no necessarily set plans to meet up with the person. And then if that meetup did happen, I was incredibly disappointed because ew, right? So anyway, I just know how that felt, right? To get yourself caught up into these emotional or pseudo emotional relationships with people, because it's fake, right? At least for me, I knew that I didn't really care about any of these niggas. Am I a psychopath? Is this psychopathy? Or is it sociopath? I look at them confused. But like it was just a thing. It was a thing to do. It was a hobby. You watch TV and then you match with someone on Binge or Hinge. Yeah, Hinge. It was something to just let time go by faster. Anyway, so I'm gonna give him some grace for that. But the content of his text messages were very explicit And I mean, it's something that I'm not interested in. It's not something that I will find to be exciting. And, I don't want to shame anyone's sexual kink and, what turns them on, right? I'm telling you now, if you come into the bedroom with some handcuffs, you can handcuff yourself right on out. Like, that's not, no. The answer is no, the door is closed, right? Some things is just like, we're not even having this conversation. Like, what are you talking about? Huh? But BDSM is all about that. Let me just give a quick definition of what BDSM is for those who may not be familiar. And I hate to even type this out. Okay, so it stands for bondage, discipline / dominance, submission, and, well, the submission is also standing for sadism and masochism. Okay, so basically freaky kiki stuff. I didn't want to type in anything. So think of like gags in your mouth, right? Think of whips. Think of anything that is humiliating. I mean, really it is, because why are you fucking me and I'm handcuffed to the bed frame? Like, why am I in handcuffs right now and you're paddling me with a whole wooden tool? Like, what's going on? But some people get off on that. Now, do I think that's a mental disorder? Yes, I do. But, it is what it is. It's your kink and you are entitled to it as long as it's consensual. Now, when this docu-series started, it focused heavily on these BDSM text messages that Armie Hammer sent to this woman in particular who's actually interviewed in this docu-series. And they're painting it off like, he's this creep and, he's disgusting. And, because he sent me this BDSM, type of text message, that proves that he's this sexual pervert. Now, I watched that part, right? And I finished the whole thing. But when I started off and I watched that, I was very much turned off with the tone that they were pushing, because I felt like, okay, sure, you may not, and even for me, like, I'm not into BDSM, it's not my thing, but to now categorize him as an automatic rapist because of that, I don't think that's fair, right? Especially since these women were actively engaging with him about this BDSM, right? They didn't say, hey, I'm not into that, stop texting me that stuff, like, let's not talk about that, let's not do that. Like, not one of them said any of that via text message. They just reacted to it by saying, wow, OMG, and they'll like they never challenged him on it. So, and I also just don't, look, I don't want to like shame these women at this part, right? Or no, later on, more is revealed that show, okay, I definitely side with the women here. For once, huh? For once, I'm siding with women. No. But I think, though, their pursuit in the beginning of this episode, I just didn't agree with. I felt like it was a little unfair. But anyway, so they were talking about these text messages that he was sending and making him seem to be this creep, which, again, I don't agree with BDSM, but it is what it is. It's consensual. But I feel like as a woman, even before you meet up with this person, mind you, this Armie Hammer guy, he's this actor. He was getting a lot of acclaim, getting a lot of exposure. He was in Hollywood, on red carpets, like with the best. So despite his high quality, checkmark self, he was hitting girls up in their DMs on Instagram. And, two of which are on this docu-series. So whatever, he decided to reach out to the one woman who's actually from Dallas, Texas, and she's this beauty salon owner or beauty spa owner, and he reached out to her, talking to her, like wanting to like meet up with her or whatever. But prior to them meeting up, they would text all the time, talk on the phone all the time, and she showed the text messages of him just being very kinky with these BDSM tone ass messages. And not once did she say via text message or via the phone call, hey dude, like I'm not into that shit, right? Not once did she make it clear to him, this is not for me. And like later on when they finally meet up, of course he's gonna he's trying to do what he's telling you he wants to do, because you didn't say, hey nigga, I don't want this, right? Like, okay, for example, there was a text message he sent to her, and he said how he wants to tie her up with an actual rope, like a rope, y'all. And it's actually this Japanese art form that he was referencing. I forget the name, and I don't want to look it up because I don't want to see some weird stuff. But anyway, it's this Japanese art form, sexual art form actually, of just tying up the woman with a rope in a particular position, and he just has his way with her, right? So he was describing that and saying, I want to tie you up, and I'm going to feed you when I want to feed you. I'm going to give you water when I want to give you water. And I'm going to make you come when I want to make you come, right? Like he's saying all these, like, I'm this dominant person, right? This is all BDSM. So I'm this dominant figure. You're going to follow my rules. You're my pet. So he says that a lot, and he'll say kitten as well. So that was his tone. That was his way of expressing, this is what he likes. This is what he wants. And, again, I'm not into that, but he's telling you what he is. He's telling you what he likes. He's telling you who he is. He's telling you, this is the type of man I am. This is what gets me off. Either you with it or you not. Like, literally, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. And he told her this from the beginning. And I think this woman decided to not take it seriously enough, at least, at the time, because, he's very handsome. He's objectively handsome, right? Like, he is a handsome man. Now, I don't look at white men like that. So it was like, okay. But, I mean, he's objectively handsome. And he's this Hollywood actor, and he comes from money. Like, okay, I'm gonna stay on the phone a little longer, right? I'm gonna secure this deal, right? That's probably what she was thinking. Dead ass, that's probably what she was thinking. And I feel like she was just not taking seriously his desire. Like, he really was into this stuff. So anyway, so when they finally meet up in person, he takes her to this Home Depot, okay? Not actually Home Depot, but a Home Depot type of store. And they go to the rope section. Okay? I wonder why. And she's still in La La Land in her head. This bitch is talking about, yeah, we strangely went to the ropes. Yes, because he wants to tie you up. Run. If you're not into that, right? Run. So they walk to the rope section, and thankfully the ropes were all out of stock. The whips, the chains, everything that he wanted were all conveniently out of stock. And she noticed, like, oh my God, she really was going to fulfill the fantasy that he's been talking to her about. So she was so happy that the store didn't have it in stock. And she demonstrated an uncomfortable expression, just an uncomfortable countenance, because once he noticed that and she realized that, oh, he's serious, he switched up on her in that moment. Instead of like continuing with that pursuit of like, hey, let's check out another store or whatever, he was like, oh, let's just go back to the hotel, right? Like he was trying to act like it wasn't a big deal, but he really wanted to do that. Eventually he did do that, and they did get it on like that, and she didn't really talk about it in detail, but she alluded to it in the docu-series. And I'm just like trying to understand, but how did you get here? And I'm not trying to victim, I'm really not, but I just feel like from the very beginning though, if someone is saying something to you that is not your cup of tea, right? It's not something that you are into, and it's not something that you would like to do, why don't you just say that? Right? Like, why don't you just communicate like, hey, I'm not into that stuff. Like, no, we're not going to do that. Now, if he says, okay, cool, no problem, and y'all meet up and he suddenly surprises you with that BDSM action, then that's fucked up. That's not okay. That's not okay at all, right? But in this woman's case, she never communicated, at least from the docu-series, she never communicated to him that she was not into BDSM. She never communicated to him that this is not her jam and she's not into this shit and, stop talking to me like this. She never said that. Never said that. And so instead, what she said were like these like lighthearted responses. She'll just say like, oh wow, ooh, like she just said these just vapid ass responses. So he's thinking, okay, I have a shot, right? Okay, this is gonna go down. And so when they eventually meet up, of course he's gonna try his luck. Of course. I just think sometimes, as women, we live in these la-la lands, these maladaptive dream land that we created, and yet he's telling you exactly what he likes. And what he likes is to handcuff you to the bed and treat you like a pet. Now, if you're into that stuff, okay, by all means. But if you're not into that stuff, maybe communicate that. Right? Like maybe say, hey, I don't want you to talk to me like this. I'm not into it, yada, yada, yada. So I didn't like that part of the docuseries. I mean, I still enjoyed it, right? It was interesting. It brought me this topic to discuss. But I just didn't appreciate how those with these kinky fetishes were being painted as these creeps, right? It looks creepy because you have someone not into it, right? And yet they find themselves with a man who's clearly into it, but they haven't communicated to that man, hey, I'm not into this shit, right? So then, okay, in that circumstance, it looks creepy, but it's only creepy because you didn't communicate to him, I'm not into this, right? I'm not into this. And now if he were to still pursue BDSM ventures with you, then that's beyond creepy, right? So I didn't agree with that part of the docuseries, but it gets worse, okay? So later on, now this is a spoiler alert, but I feel like watching it will give you more clarity. So yes, I'm spoiling it for you, but it's just too much. I just gotta talk about this real quick. So it goes on, and another woman comes out the woodwork talking about this nigga raped me. Oh, okay. Well, I definitely don't support that, right? I'm not gonna find an alley-oop or anything. So she was like, during this whole scandal, there was this video that this other woman just tweeted, and she talks about how he had sex with her, raped her technically, according to her story. Allegedly, of course. But, she talks about that. She's crying on the video. And you have Gloria Allred, a part of the case, of course, because, she's always around for any sexual offense type of case against women. So, who knows, right? We don't know. I don't know. I don't want to take that away from her story, right? I don't know if it's clout. I don't know, because it was just like back to back women who, I want to say all of them, it was just one woman, according to the docu-series, that said she was raped by him. While other women said they were in relationships with him and he did BDSM things to her and they weren't really that into it. And again, not just a woman that I just talked about earlier who should have stated her boundaries. Another woman who he dated after her didn't state her boundaries either. She just acquiesced to him. And, that comes with age, of course. I sympathize with that. And I'm not trying to be hard on women on that front. But I just feel like, again, we have to communicate. We have to tell people what we like, what we don't like. It comes down to any little thing. Like, it could come down to, no, don't call me that, right? Like, don't call me chump. Don't call me nigga. Don't call me punk. Don't call me Max. Don't call me names that I don't like. Whether you think it's an aggressive name or I'm doing too much or I'm being dramatic. No. My name is Maxine, right? And that's how you should address me, period. Not Max, no. So, again, it just starts off with communication. And if the person is receiving that and their form of reaction is to be angry towards you for stating this complete boundary, then that's a red flag. Like, I just feel like you telling someone how you would like to be addressed shouldn't be a conversation. Like, it shouldn't even be a long-winded, like, there's nothing else more to say. After I said, address me as such, just say, okay, will do. Like, it doesn't even have to, you don't even have to debate with me or you being dramatic. Okay, all right, Maxine, I'll call you Maxine. Like, you, okay, how about you just don't call me anymore? How about that? How about that, nigga? It's just, people are weird. So, that's House of Hammer. Y'all check that out. Again, it's on Discovery Plus, and it's a 3-part series. It's pretty good. I was entertained. Nicki Minaj. It's giving coke is the trending topic on Twitter. Literally, that's the name of the topic. Nicki Minaj has been taking a lot of L's lately, and I actually feel sympathy towards her. I think it is a lot to handle, right? Being a mother and being a sibling of a convicted rapist of a brother, right? Allegedly. Look that story up. And I have sympathy for her for being married to a convicted rapist, right? He was he was sent to prison, her husband, Petty. His last name is Petty. I can't remember his first name. I can't remember his first name. But anyway, he was sent to prison for a rape charge. And he was found guilty for it. And he served, I think, 6 years, a couple of years in prison for that charge. Now, just a few weeks ago, it has been proven, allegedly, that the woman who accused him of rape, the woman who was responsible for him spending 6 years in prison, actually lied about the case, and he never did have sex with her. He never did rape her, and she's on video, like there's a recording of her saying such. It's just weird, right? It's complicated, it's weird. And Nicki Minaj is in the middle of it all, right? Nicki Minaj hasn't raped anyone. She hasn't sexually violated anyone, but yet she's connected to people very closely in her life who has or has been accused of such heinous crimes. And of course, as someone who is the loved one of someone who is accused of or committed a heinous act, it's difficult to navigate, right? You know, you want to support your loved one, and if the accuser is right, then it's just like, oh my gosh, like it's a hard pill to swallow. And it's a hard pill to swallow if the accuser was found to be a clout chaser, right? A liar, someone who's just saying whatever to get you down. Like, it's hard. It's hard. So I feel like there's a lot that she's handling and navigating through despite, in spite of all of this. And then on top of that is bleeding into her musical career. Why am I... Okay, I'm sorry. I just got a annoying ass text. I feel like after a certain time, don't send me a text message. Like, don't... Like, I just have... Okay, we're gonna move on. Ugh, this is annoying. We're gonna move on. Is that inappropriate? Like, if we're not in a relationship, like, if we're not romantically together of any, like, why are you texting me after a certain time? Hello, is the mic on? And with a straight up question, why are you texting me right now? Okay, we're gonna move on. Nicki Minaj is getting a lot of flack because she has a stand-up fan base, okay? Her fans are called Barbs, is what she calls her fans. You know how Beyonce, we're called the Beehive, right? Rihanna, well, I don't know what's going on with Rihanna anymore, but what was it? Navy, whatever the fuck it was. But anyway, Nicki Minaj's fan base is called Barbs. And Nicki Minaj has been actually reposting these messages or these tweets that her Barbs have created in defense of her. So one person in particular, she is a pop culture commentator, and she makes a living out of simply commentating. Excuse me. She makes a career after simply commentating on just what's going on in pop culture. And she has a series of tweets in which she talks about Nicki Minaj. Let me give you a little quick verbatim run through of these tweets. Now, these tweets are kind of funny because I think sometimes when, just as consumers, the public. Oh my gosh, sorry, my nose is like annoying right now. But as consumers of of these celebrities and their work, we are commenting on whatever they put out at every point. So this woman, I'm not gonna say her name, she's a pop culture commentator. She says, a couple of her tweets, one thing Nicki is gonna do is make sure she's not leaving her husband. And I want to talk about that because Nicki is supporting her husband, who, like I said earlier, was accused of raping a young child. But here's the thing with that case, though. Let me just give you a quick background on that. So the girl was 15 and he was 18, something like that. Like, it wasn't necessarily far in age. So that's one. But two, he did say that he never had sex with her, despite her claims at the time. So I'm just making that point because I think sometimes, like, say if they did have sex, unfortunately, there are relationships of young girls with older men. And, if you think about it from the high school standpoint, right? Like, high school students, you have the freshman girls, they're 14, 15. And you have the high school seniors, even college freshmen, still interested, and not even still interested, but like pursuing, like hunting down these young girls. Now, I mean, maybe that's predatory, right? That's proving the point of this young girl. What I'm saying is, I don't know. It's like tricky. It's like tricky waters. Like, it's not appropriate, but like to go on and create this label of being a rapist, I don't know if I'm in agreement with that. Well, specifically in the context of your high school senior, hell, even if you're a high school junior and you dated this girl and she's a freshman, I don't agree with it. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with it. Like, when I taught high school students, I saw many of those relationships. And I just minded my business. Like, okay, well, yeah, you're not going to get relationship advice from me, so don't come to me about, Rob said this. I don't give a fuck. I want nothing to do with your relationship. But I just don't agree with that young man being given the rapist title for the rest of his life. Now he's a sex offender forever, right? Forever. Now he has to be listed forever. When at the time it was socially praised, right? At the time and in the context of when he dated this young girl, it was encouraged. It was okay. It was accepted. It was celebrated. So I just think it's unfair. I know that's a little controversial, but I do think it's unfair to say. So let's say that was the case with Nicki Minaj's husband at the time with this young girl. Like, it's one thing to be in your 30s or even in your 20s and you're dating a young girl, an underage girl specifically. That's like totally different, and you should be called a rapist, if you did rape that girl. But if you are just a few years apart and it's in the context of a high school, I don't think it's fair to be called a rapist. This is my opinion. Anyway, so, that first tweet that this pop culture commentator said about, one thing Nicki's gonna do is make sure she's not leaving her husband. She's saying it in a tone of shame, right? Like, Nicki Minaj should be ashamed for not leaving her husband. Nicki Minaj, like, I think it's not fair, again, to give her that responsibility. She's going to ride for it. Like, as you would, right? As you would ride for your loved one. Now, if there is credible evidence, if there's video surveillance that proves this alleged victim's claim, then that's a different story. But it doesn't. It actually doesn't. And the recent video of that young girl, who's an adult now, saying that she lied about the rape, like, you don't, hello? What the fuck are these people talking? Like, where is this pop culture commentator talking about that? Like, what is your take on that? Because there is that video out there saying that, hey, I made this whole shit up. I didn't mean it. I lied. And my lie cost 6 years of this man's life. I don't know. So there's that. So she has like a series of tweets about Nicki Minaj in a way that is not at all supportive or conducive to praising Nicki Minaj. And one thing about Nicki Minaj is she is very sensitive, which look, if you're an artist, you are sensitive. That goes with the character of an artist in all capacities. You know, you could be a poet, a rapper, a singer, a dancer, whatever art form you choose to express yourself in. That means it comes with the territory to be sensitive. Like, that's just what it is. Right? You're sensitive about your shit, and that's totally fine. But Nicki Minaj is known for her sensitivity, and if you even dare to say, hey, I don't really like the recent album she put out, but her last project was great, she would have this vendetta out against you. And she would be so persistent in making sure that whatever career you had is now in jeopardy because you wasn't supporting and yes, mamming her all the way. And a quick example of that is Charlamagne the God from The Breakfast Club was showing some negative criticism towards Nicki Minaj's album at the time. There was a comment that he said a couple years ago that showed that he didn't really like whatever work that she put out. And Nicki Minaj didn't appreciate that. And mind you, he didn't say it in a way that was rude. Like, he wasn't trying to say, yo, this shit is trash. I don't know. Nicki Minaj lost her. Like, he wasn't saying it like that. He was just saying, like, I didn't really enjoy it, you know, the way I wanted to, X, Y, and Z. And Nicki Minaj really took offense to it. So much so that she has yet to return to The Breakfast Club to have another interview there since then. So, you know, she's that type of sensitivity, which is just like, girl, you know, not everyone's gonna like your stuff, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to mean anything else. So what happened? So my question really is, do these social and pop culture commentators, do they have a responsibility to kind of just gate what they say? Like, is there a responsibility that they should hold to not be so open and honest about their takes on whatever project that they're commenting on? Like, I wonder if they should be held responsible, because although this woman in particular, this pop culture commentator in particular, is not like hazing Nicki Minaj, but she is showing her disdain for recent singles that Nicki Minaj has released, and she is showing her disdain for just the latest works of Nicki Minaj. And this has been a common sentiment from the public. Like, Nicki Minaj doesn't have it anymore. Like, it seems like she's not getting the same exposure. And Nicki Minaj is known for not being a girl's girl or supportive of other female rappers. And so she actually demonstrates some hate towards these new age female rappers like a City Girl, like a Meg Thee Stallion and Coi Leray. Now, I don't really get into that drama because it's like, I don't care. But I don't know. I just feel like with Nicki Minaj, she's in a tough position. You know, she has her husband who was convicted of rape. She has her brother who was convicted of rape. Like, just left and right. Like, damn, rape just surrounds you, girl. Allegedly. But I really do have sympathy for her. But a lot of people are trying to hold her responsible for her fan base, right? Like, should Nicki Minaj tell her fan base to chill out and stop doxing anyone who goes against her? And what doxing means, for those who may not be familiar, is basically exposing someone's personal information. So, like, suddenly your address, your home address is online, right? Because someone hacked the system and was able to show that and put that on Twitter or put that on Instagram. And now everyone has access to your address or your phone number or your work address or just your boss, right? It could be any of those things. And now you have to deal with hate mail, hate messages, because you have a Barb who wants to defend Nicki Minaj at all time. And this woman, this pop culture commentator, is showing that she has just an onslaught of text messages from random numbers of fans from, of Nicki Minaj telling her, I will kill you, I will hunt you down. Like, just a crazy shit. Like, okay. Like, are you okay? So the critique is, should Nicki Minaj tell her fans to chill out? Should she release a message publicly to the masses telling her fans, you need to stop? Now, sure, she could, because I think she is aware, especially since she is retweeting many of her Barb's tweets, and these tweets are against particular pop culture commentators. So I think it will serve her right to speak up and say, hey, Barbs, just chill out. However she wants to say it in her Nicki Minaj way. But I just feel like Nicki Minaj is just, I don't know, something's going on with her. It's giving coke. That's literally the name of the topic, of the trending topic on Twitter. It's giving coke. And also, and it's saying that because there is this Queen radio show that she has, and she releases episodes whenever she wants. I don't understand. It's like a podcast, but it's live and it's on a particular network. I don't know. I never watched it or listened to it, but I heard clips. I don't really know where one could listen to an episode. It's very confusing. But anyway, she apparently has been on her Queen radio show for 48 hours straight, live. And she's just going off in these tangents. One tangent in particular, she is giving shade towards Garcelle Bouvet, who we all know her as Fancy from the Jamie Foxx show. And she also was a consistent talk show host on The Real in the last season. I think The Real is finally canceled. But anyways, and she's also on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, of course. That is the main thing. But yeah, I just had to give her a quick history because I love the Jamie Foxx show. I love Jamie Foxx. Anyway, so Nicki Minaj decided to give her shade because apparently on The Real, they gave the woman who accused Nicki Minaj's husband of rape, allegedly, a platform. They invited her onto the show and talked about the case with her, and they all, of course, share their opinions and their takes on the matter. And I don't know what Garcelle Bouvet said exactly, so I don't know why Nicki Minaj felt like it was necessary to give her that type of aggression. But whatever she said, it angered Nicki Minaj, and I don't think that's fair because you're on a talk show. You're on a talk show where you are literally paid to talk. You have to talk about these topics regardless of your personal feelings or biases. You have to speak your speech. And unfortunately, Nicki Minaj decided to rag on her in her Queen Radio live segment. It's just weird. It's very weird. I need Nicki Minaj to get it together. I wish her well. I wish her well. Now, who else I wish well? I wish Ray J well. Say that 3 times. I wish Ray J well. I wish Ray J well. That's hard for me. The W is hard. So Ray J went on a rant recently exposing the receipts of Kris Jenner actually being responsible and the mastermind behind the Kim K sex tape. And he alleges that, according to the receipts, because he was like showing these text messages and it just became too long to follow. But according to the synopsis of this exposure, Ray J is saying that Kris Jenner was in the room while he was fucking her daughter, Kim Kardashian. And she was saying, she was giving tips and pointers, allegedly, of, what is the best move to do and the best angle. And there are actually two tapes. And yet Chris decided to pick one instead of the other because the other wasn't giving Kim Kardashian the best light, right? Like, that was literally the reason. She wanted to make sure her daughter was seen in the best light. And by that, I mean the best angle, like literally, like physically in the best light. I'm not talking about like this like metaphoric type of way. I'm saying like she didn't look as good in the other video as she did in the one that Kris Jenner eventually picked. So instead of this whole history of the sex tape got leaked, it actually was released on purpose. It was purposeful. And Ray J decided to finally say this aloud because he was tired of Kris Jenner and Kim perpetuating this lie, and he was also just wanting to just be rid of this case and just move on. So look, okay, right? Like okay, I believe him, right? I don't think he's lying at all. I feel like you have a family like the Jenners, like the Kardashians, who are willing to do whatever it takes. Look at fucking Caitlyn Jenner, okay, who was once Bruce Jenner. Look at him or her. Like, you have just a history in the family who would do anything to stay in the limelight, however long or however gruesome it takes. And they made it. Like, they are a household name. Kim Kardashian is a household name. My dad knows Kim Kardashian. Like, everyone knows Kim Kardashian. And this all catapulted because of the sex tape. And this was because of the mastermind of Kris Jenner. Like, you have to really sell your soul to the devil to really get that type of fame and exposure and popularity and luxury that they were looking for and they achieved. Now, there's a cost to it. There's a cost to everything, and the cost is to sell your soul. That's my perception of it, honestly. But, what Kim Kardashian would say, people just don't want to work. Nobody wants to work anymore. Okay. Nobody wants to work anymore. But anyway, I do support Ray J. I appreciate him for saying this aloud and not acquiescing to the BS anymore. So that's what's up. Does it matter anymore? No, because it's not like the culture that we're in is going to hold the Kardashians accountable for lying to us and shame them for being deceptive and not great role models, and putting this pressure on society for presenting this certain beauty standard that's unrealistic and unhealthy. Like, the society, the culture that we're in doesn't care. It doesn't care. Like, you have a lot of women talking about wanting to get BBLs just cause, right? Just cause you have the influencers and the celebrities presenting this image that is so unhealthy, yet no one really wants to talk about it. Like, you have people dying coming off of the plastic surgery board or bed, and no one's talking about these botched surgeries, and yet everyone's just like praising this look and this aesthetic. It's sick. And you even have, at one point, BBLs were just for bigger women, women who had extra fat on them and just wanted to restore that fat in other areas, which is unhealthy still. It's still not okay. It's still not fucking okay. But at one point, it was just reserved for that type of person, right? That body type. Yet now there is an onslaught of skinny women who are getting BBLs. They're getting fat from somewhere. They're getting fat, and they're wanting that fat to be put in whatever area in their body, their buttocks, their breasts, their hips. And it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like this world is freaking sick, yo. Like it really is. It's really sick. It really is sick. So I just think about like these little girls. I don't even have necessarily, I'm not influenced by this, like, in that way. Like, I don't feel like, I remember I had this friend who, literally, she's the same size as me. Like, I'm pretty slim. She's slim, too, but she's a little bit slimmer than me. And she was, like, I remember one time I met up with her, and she was, like, kind of sad, too. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I don't know, I'm just not really feeling myself anymore, and I want to get a BBL. I want to get a nose job. I want to get, my breasts done. She's literally naming a list of surgeries that she wants to get. And I'm seated, shocked. I'm seated right across from her, and I'm just shocked. Like, what? You want to do what to your body? Do you see your body? And I'm looking at her, like, literally looking at her. Are you okay? And this is an example of someone who has been just brainwashed into thinking that their natural body is not enough. Like, her body is banging just as is. Like, her body is banging. She has the right curves. She's a beautiful girl. And it pained me to see and hear that she didn't see that, So just think about the younger women, right? She's my age. So think about women who are younger and feeling that same way, if not worse, and being accommodated in that feeling, like being affirmed in that, they don't have a friend like me who's gonna tell you, like, girl, shut the fuck up, right? I didn't say shut the fuck up, right? I'm gonna be gentle with you as much as I can, of course, but like I said to her, no, you don't need that. Like, you're just beautiful as you are. Like, so I find ways to uplift, and I hope that it helped. But ultimately, no matter what people say, if you don't feel it for yourself, then you don't feel it. And unfortunately, it may take a botched surgery for you to realize, oh man, I should have never did this, right? And even for the women who are of bigger size, who have excess fat, that is still not the right way to go, I feel like. Because I feel like, we don't really talk about just the negative side effects from these surgeries. You may come out looking the part, but your insides may be so fucked up. Think about K Michelle. Like, oh my God, that girl just fucked her whole body up. And it's a sad thing to see because she was so beautiful. And she had a whole reality show talking about all of the effects, all the negative effects that she experienced from her botched surgeries. Anyway, all of this because of Kim K and that whole clan of a family. All right, you guys, I'm going to end the episode here. Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to support this podcast by being a subscriber on YouTube. Just type in God Built This Podcast and subscribe. Leave a comment on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Leave a 5-star review, and be sure to tell a friend. I will check in with you guys next time. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.